So, a new Star Wars trailer just came out for Episode 9. And I'm left a little worried about it. To be clear, I liked the trailer just fine. I liked it that the trailer didn't show very much of the actual film. That's something very commendable. The movie looks very interesting. And there's a few surprises, even if they're not all good surprises. But this new Star Wars film really worries me. And I'm going to explain why. If you couldn't tell, Disney has been milking Star Wars for years now. They've brought a whole new trilogy, and they're planning a lot of spin-off films and shows. But here's what really messes with me when it comes to this. I feel like Disney seems to be milking it for the sake of milking Star Wars. We're getting a new movie every 2 years. Not that this is a bad thing, and I'm not complaining about that, but Disney has this horrible attitude towards this project. And if something just barely underperforms, or something controversial comes up involving their films, the entire game is changed. And I enjoyed both The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi, but they don't come anywhere near the original trilogy. They're not as bad as the prequels, not even close. But there's something about these new films that just seems kind of off. Now, just to be clear, I'm not talking about Rey being a Mary Sue or Kylo Ren or anything like that about how Disney is ruining Star Wars, because I don't believe that. You still have the original films that you can watch all the time. These new Star Wars movies will only ruin the originals if you allow them to. They don't do it by themselves. Anyway, now that that's out of the way, I feel like Disney is putting pressure on these filmmakers to throw something into the plot to get more people to see Star Wars. At least for this movie, it does. The Force Awakens had that on some level. Like, Disney clearly wanted Han Solo to be in it. And it's pretty evident throughout this new trilogy that Disney wanted a female character as the lead. Again, not going to talk about the character of Rey in this, but it's clear that with Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker, which I should probably mention is the shittiest title of the whole series, definitely feels like Disney had their hands on it. And the biggie here is Palpatine's laughter at the end of the trailer, implying that he was never really dead. Which, first of all, doesn't even make any sense, because the Death Star blew up again, and last I checked, Palpatine was still in there. And second, even if he did somehow manage to survive, it's been 30 years since the events of the original trilogy. 30 years since Palpatine presumably died. So unless reincarnation is a thing in Star Wars, and it's a thing where you can keep your old body and voice, then I don't understand what it is. I'm fine with Han Solo and Luke Skywalker coming back because they presumably died within a week of each other. But it's been 3 decades since Palpatine died, so why would you bring him back? Oh yeah, fan service. Lando's back in this one as well, which isn't an outrage. Lando did not die in Return of the Jedi, but based on this trailer, I have a feeling they just threw him in there because nostalgia. I also kind of have a problem with it saying the saga comes to an end in the trailer, when it's so obvious that this is not going to be the end of Star Wars. Like, in 3 decades, Disney's going to decide to make a whole new trilogy. And plus, I think Rian Johnson is planning to make a Star Wars trilogy himself. So this is really contradictory. But the thing that stands out about this trailer is that it makes the whole film seem watered down from the previous 2 films, especially The Last Jedi. Say what you will about The Last Jedi, but The Last Jedi took a lot of risks and was very dark and gritty. was probably the darkest film in the franchise by far. But since The Last Jedi is so controversial among Star Wars fans, I guess I can kind of see why they wanted to take more control over Episode 9. I feel like a lot of this stuff is basically due to The Last Jedi, possibly even Solo as well. It doesn't look like that much of a new take on Star Wars. It looks like The Empire Strikes Back again. It just looks like every other film I've seen before. Like, this could be the plot for any movie. The Last Jedi at least had a plot that you could say was its own. You could at least say it tried to do something unique. And same with The Force Awakens. The Force Awakens is basically a carbon copy of No New Hope. But they tried to do something different, at least. The Rise of Skywalker doesn't look like it's doing anything different at all. The trailer looks intriguing because it looks like they actually did care about it still. But it just looks like the same movie. This probably just contradicted everything I just said. The trailer probably doesn't represent the entire film, but even then, I think that this film is probably going to be just as controversial as The Last Jedi, and I have a feeling that's going to be what people are complaining about with this new trilogy. So, what am I saying? Well, as a Star Wars fan myself, I feel like the filmmakers should be taking it more seriously than it should be. Not that Star Wars isn't goofy, because it definitely is. But this is a series that has been able to attack dark themes of religion, fatherhood, bravery, standing up for oneself, nationalism. Star Wars is a great medium to try out new things. And it just seems like Disney is trying to make another factory product with this one. And I feel like it's entirely because of the backlash. I'm obviously still going to go see it, because how can I not? I really hope that this isn't what I think it's going to be from this trailer. I also want to mention that the conversations on these new Star Wars movies should be more nuanced than they are. It's almost as like, oh, you love it, you're an SJW, and if you hate it, you're just a hater. Which is just nonsense. It's the same thing with other films as well. You either love it or you hate it. And that's a very toxic way to talk about movies. Anyway, I'm done.